Hi everyone. There is no single entity that can deliver everything well. Organisations need to understand that the strengths come from collaboration, delivering true value to end customers. I'm Ricky Patel, Regional Sales Manager at Fujitsu for London City, and this is Tech Focus. Since 2017, Fujitsu have partnered with Nutanix to deliver their software-defined cloud platform in combination with Fujitsu Infrastructure and Engineering. We've delivered it to over 200 customers across Europe, manufacturing, finance, pharma, for example. And I'm delighted to be joined by Haynes, Nutanix Field CTO. And so, Ian, let's shift gears slightly. Digital transformation is impacting finance and insurance. What are your thoughts around it?
Well, thanks for inviting me. Nice to be here. I think these days, when I talk to banks and insurance companies about digital transformation, the first thing they talk about is costs, actually. It's a difficult climate at the moment. Inflation is obviously been high for a while, so costs are really challenging for people. And they're having a difficulty in just standing still with their existing budgets. So cost is definitely number one. And then they talk about, keeping the services running. So operational resilience, cybersecurity, again, really important areas for them. Financial services is one of the most attacked industries across the sectors. And so, technology managers are really worried about not only how do they defend themselves against those attacks, but also how do they recover if they are attacked, and how do they get back to kind of last known good data. And then, of course, the thing that's on everybody's lips is, artificial intelligence. How do I prepare for artificial intelligence? How do I get ready for it? What sort of things do I need to put in place?
Brilliant. So how would you say Nutanix are helping the challenges that you're kind of just described in the finance and insurance sector?
So Nutanix is a hybrid cloud platform, and we enable people to run applications or manage their data anywhere. And by anywhere, we're talking, in a private cloud, in your own data center, or in the public cloud on Amazon or Microsoft Azure, or in a colo, or even at the edge. And we typically deploy in sort of three different use cases. So the first one is that hybrid cloud for running applications. And those applications might be your legacy applications. They might be applications which you're working on and trying to re-architect, or there might be brand new applications. But they're applications that people want to be able to run in a variety of places. The second use case is typically the digital workplace. So here we're seeing a lot of people wanting to provide a more flexible work environment for their users. Okay, it's probably stemmed a lot from the pandemic, when people were working obviously predominantly at home, but now they're coming back into the office. And so we're seeing people wanting to provide that flexible working space, and that often leads them down a VDI route and using VDI. So we provide our platform, which can then run VDI. And again, what a lot of people are doing is they're running VDI on their own data centers, but maybe expanding into the cloud, or expanding or doing their disaster recovery into the cloud. So those two solutions have really been the kind of core of the success for Nutanix over the years, starting off with appliances and then moving into just sort of HCI with a variety of vendors, and now having the extension into the public cloud. But the new area to move into is really providing application services on top of the platform, almost, if you like, PaaS services, platform as a service. So we can do that for storage. We can do that for containers, and we have a lot of conversations with banks at the moment about container implementations and container-based development that they're doing, and how do they manage that at scale, securely, with resilience. So containers is a big part of the discussion, but also databases, modern application databases. What you see with Agile and DevOps is lots and lots of development environments, lots and lots of loosely coupled systems, and that means lots and lots of databases. And so managing all those databases gets difficult, creating them, demising them, managing the storage, taking snapshots, upgrading them, patching them. These are all jobs that need to be done. They all need to be API driven to be part of that DevOps lifecycle. And so we provide some services on top of the platform which can enable you to do that as well. So those are really the kind of three main use cases that we're seeing today.
Okay, no, thank you for sharing that. So just to touch on one of them, cloud. So as consumers, we're kind of led to believe cloud is the answer to every single challenge. But let's be real. We'll have listeners and watchers who are going through a cloud program at the moment, and understandably, they are struggling on that journey at the moment. Is that your experience of it at the moment as well?
That is absolutely our experience. Everywhere we go, we see people who are attempting their cloud programs. They've made some progress with it, but yes, they're finding challenges in their cloud migrations. The future is cloud. We see that constantly, but it's maybe not cloud only, and maybe not even cloud first now, but there's definitely going to be cloud in people's futures. Nutanix recently released their annual cloud survey. About 1,500 IT decision makers across the world, all different sectors, and over 80% of them said that they see their predominant platform in the future being hybrid cloud. So they mean a private cloud and one or more public clouds. So we see that future's cloud. I co-authored a study last year just in the finance sector. We interviewed questionnaire interviewed about 1,000 different recipients. And they reported to us that they were running about 15% of their critical business services in the cloud. But by the end of 2025, they thought that number would have risen to 30%. So we're still seeing cloud adoption. We're still seeing people increasing on the cloud, but it's difficult. Now, the reason they're doing it is, they like the fact that they can start really quickly. They don't have to wait for infrastructure. The fact that they can grow from very small platforms into big platforms. They can grow and shrink according to business demand, and they get access to the innovation. So, the most innovation happens on the cloud, a lot of it with the cloud providers themselves. But even third parties, when they're developing software, they always release first to cloud. So people want to get hold of that. But again, these surveys told us that they're wary of a few things. So cloud costs is definitely one of the things they struggle to manage. You've moved from CapEx to OpEx. And how do you manage that cost on an ongoing basis? You have all this dynamic consumption, but again, you've got to think about the costs underlying that. They're concerned about regulation. There's a whole slew of regulations coming in, a lot of them in the finance industry, but some of them, sector-wide. They're around operational resilience, they're around managing data, they're around cybersecurity. And of course, people are now starting to talk about AI charters and AI regulations. So people are concerned about how they're going to meet all the different regulatory requirements that they have. And then skills. Skills is always a challenge as well. I know when I started on the cloud journey, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we really struggled to find any skills out there for helping us migrate to cloud. We had to do a lot of in-house training, but it really hasn't got much better. In fact, the demand for skills and knowledge has gone up, and the more people that we train, the more demand there is. So it's a constant challenge. So I think the cloud journey, will continue, but migrations are difficult. So I think we see people doing some lift and shift, and that works okay, but the costs can be high. We see people wanting to re-architect, but it's tricky to do that re-architecting of your applications. And then we see people writing their applications for new directly on the cloud, which is great, but then you need a team that has the skills and experience to be able to write in a cloud native way. So again, we're having lots of conversations with our customers about the Nutanix platform, because giving them that one hybrid platform where they can take their applications as they're running now on-premise, move them onto public cloud really without changing them, and still being able to manage that as one hybrid platform, one set of services, and then re-architecting, if you like, at their own pace, with their, within the constraints of their budget, is proving to be a very attractive solution for them. And so that's what we're seeing really in the cloud market today.
Okay, thank you for that. So there's two elements that I got from that. So obviously from one hot buzzword, from cloud to another, AI. And obviously you mentioned the skills piece as well related to cloud. But what are your thoughts on AI? I know you touched briefly on it already, but let's just delve a little bit deeper into your thoughts around AI.
Yeah, so obviously, everybody's talking about AI at the moment. Businesses are all looking to see, well, how can I use AI to, enhance the value that I deliver to my customers or improve a service that I deliver? Or on the other side of the coin, how can I use AI to dramatically improve productivity and either deliver more or, reduce my costs? So, there's no end of business ideas about what to do with AI. And it's really becoming a board level conversation. Boards are very concerned about the future of their companies if they don't participate in this AI revolution. So, of course, technology managers are all thinking, well, that's great, but what do I need to do to be ready for AI? And I think there are two things which jump out at me when I see that. So one is they need to have some sort of public cloud capability. Okay, so, public cloud is where all of the large language models are, where the public models are. It's where all the training happens. Quite frankly, it's where the resources are, the scale of resources that you need to be able to train and learn with AI. So people need a public cloud capability. If they haven't got that already, they need to get that and be happy and safe and secure with it. But not everything is going to happen in the public cloud. People might want to run their AI, certainly for some use cases, on their own premises, and they might not want to share all of their data with the public cloud either. So they need an on-premise capability. So we're back once again in a hybrid cloud world, just like all those decision makers said, we need a hybrid cloud platform to run that. The other thing that is interesting is we've got a lot of business ideas. We've got a lot of pilots and proof of concepts running at the moment. And the idea sort of works, but generally the results are pretty disappointing. And the reason the results are disappointing is because people's data is not as good as they think it is. Okay, and so the first thing that really AI is highlighting for people is data quality, right? That data that we're using to train, the data that we're using to input, to run the models, it's not as good as we thought it was. So data management and data quality are also really important. How do you improve the data which is in your source systems? And then how do you move it out of those source systems through your AI ecosystem into the models? So I think those two areas, having a public cloud capability and then having a good answer around how you manage your data and your data quality, are going to be fundamental for people being successful with AI.
Thank you for that. It's really thought-provoking, to be honest. And to our listeners and watchers out there, Ian's touched on legislation, DORA, the Cybersecurity Act, the AI Charter. We spoke about AI, we spoke about cloud. So if any of that resonates with you, please reach out to me on LinkedIn through our Tech Focus webpage. So massive thank you to Ian at Nutanix.
Thank you.
Stay tuned for our next episode of Tech Focus. Until then, look at your infrastructure.